guys, welcome back to the second episode of the trading tutorials. So the first episode was a grand success and people started to give their comments on the videos, and they said it was really helpful. So I thought this video will make more benefits for the viewers in our YouTube. So in today's session, what we'll be discussing about is the next set of Japanese candlesticks, where I'm going to teach you about the hammers and inverted hammers, shooting stars, hanging man, and there are plenty lot of stuffs like engulfing patterns. So we'll be discussing about that today. So why wait? Let's move on to our trading tutorials. Alright guys, so in today's topic we're gonna see about hammer and a hanging man. So let us see what is a hammer and a hanging man. So before getting into the rules of hammer and a hanging man, first let us see how does a hammer and a hanging man look like. So as you can see, this is how a hammer and a hanging man looks like. The body of the candle, see at the bottom of a downtrend we can find out there is a hammer. So a hammer has to have a long lower shadow, but the closing of the candle should be higher than the open price. So in case, let's say this was your open price and the market has come all the way down, this is your low price, but the candle has to close above the opening price. So this is your closing price. So when the market closes above the open price and it has a long lower shadow, it is called as hammer. So first of all, we need to know when the word hammer comes, it represents a bearish reversal. It represents a bearish reversal in the sense, for example, the market was down from this area, and when the hammer has been formed, it represents now the buyers are going to control the market. So as we have seen in our previous video, a candlestick is a representation of a buyer and a seller. So when a hammer is formed, it represents now the buyers are going to control the market. Now in the same scenario, we have a uptrend and then we have a hanging man, which represents the sellers are going to control the market in the further coming hour or whichever the time frame it is going to be. This will be your closing price, and this was your, at the top it was your opening price. So after the opening, the market came up all the way down here, and at the end of the time the market was closed here. So it was below the opening price. Let's consider this was 10 rupees and the market came all the way up to 5 rupees and closed at 7. So the opening price is lesser than that of the closing price. So the closing price was lower than the opening price. So ultimately it has formed a hanging man. But the real important thing what we need to know is the important factors which define a hammer and a hanging man is the color of the candle. So a hammer should be always bullish and a hanging man should always be a bearish candle. So if you see a bullish candle at the bottom of a downtrend, so this is your downtrend. Well, this is our downtrend, and at the bottom of a downtrend, if you find a hammer, it represents now the buyers are going to control the market. And at the top of a uptrend, if you are going to find a hanging man, it represents the sellers are going to dominate the market. Alright, so now let's get into the rules of hammer and a hanging man. So as it is given, now a hammer and a hanging man may look alike, but the only difference is it varies in color. So hammer is for bulls and hanging man is a bear candle. So the definition is it has a long lower shadow with a small bodies at the top, a small upper body just like a hammer. How we have a tool, it's just a hammer. So you can have a little bit of wick on top of the hammer, not an issue. So people say that it has to be completely perfect. No, it can have a little bit of wick, but the thing is, the major difference between a spinning top, people used to get confused with spinning tops and hammers. The difference between spinning top and a hammer is a hammer's body has to be closed above 70% of the candle. For example, let's say this total candle size was 10 points from the top till the bottom, it's 10 points. So the candle has to close above 7. So consider this as 1 and this as 10. So the closing candle has to be above 3. So then it can be considered as a hammer or a hanging man. So this is the difference between a spinning top and a hammer and a hanging man. So spinning top will be closed at the middle, the body will be at the center of the wick, and for a hammer and a hanging man, the body has to be above 70% of the wicks from high to low. All right. So the hammer means it is a bullish reversal and the hanging man is a bearish reversal. So rule number 1, this is the important part. Here too, we have to wait for a confirmation. If the candle is formed, wait for the next candle to confirm it. So whenever you're going to go and trade with candlesticks, the first thing to do is you have to wait for the next candle confirmation. Because sometimes what happens is people just they get into they are very hurry in trading, so they just get into a trade just seeing a candlestick pattern. But the thing is, they don't wait for a confirmation. So once you get a confirmation, it is sure that this trade can be profitable. So first wait for a confirmation and then enter into the trade setup. And then the rule number 2 is, if it is formed near a support or a resistance, we don't have to wait for the confirmation. So the next point is, so the hammer, if it is formed, let's say the hammer is formed at a in the next previous slide. So the hammer has to be formed near a support. So the hammer has to be formed near a support. So consider this as the support, and the hammer has formed as near the support. Then you need not wait for this candle. You can just go for a buy after the candle closes. And if there is a hanging man near the resistance, you need not wait for this candle. You can just go for a sell after the market closes. So after hanging man closes, you can just go for a sell directly if there is a possibility of a resistance. So that is what is your rule number 2. And the rule number 3 is, never trade this candle if it is formed in a sideways. So in spinning top, we had a rule, if it is formed in the middle of a sideways, we don't go for a trade. But for hammer and a hanging man, we never trade in a sideways market, because hammer and a hanging man is basically used for trend reversals. So it changes from a sell trend to a buy trend, and it changes from a buy trend to a sell trend. Consider if the market is going in a sideways, we don't use hammer and a hanging man, even if it is formed over here or here. It doesn't work, probably because the market is in a consolidation level. So we don't use hammer and a hanging man at the sideways market. All right. So I'll give you some live examples now. So in a downtrend, as you can see, there was a downtrend. We have a hammer over here. So after the hammer was formed, there is no support. So we have to wait for the next candle. So once this candle has been finished, then we go for a buy. So we went for a buy over here, and the market started to move along. And then there was a resistance line here, and you can see there was a hanging man at the top of a uptrend. So at the top of a uptrend, a hanging man has been formed. So you don't have to wait for this candle and go for a sell here, but you could have gone for a sell over here, because rule number 2 applies here. So as the rule number 2 says, if there is a support or a resistance, you need not wait for the next candle. You could have gone for a sell at this particular level. So this is how you trade a hammer and a hanging man. So the first thing to know is the color of the candle is very important in hammer and a hanging man. In case of spinning top, color was not really important, because whether it can be bullish or bearish, still we are going to use it as a spinning top. But when the market, if you're going to trade the market using hammer and a hanging man, then the first thing is the color of the candle. So if it is forming as a bullish candle at the top of uptrend. Now let's consider this scenario. Let's say the market was going up and you find a hammer here. Now consider this was not red, as green. Now what happens is, we don't consider this because it is invalid. If you have a uptrend and you find a hammer at the uptrend, now consider this as hammer. You don't go for a sell. because this is, or you don't go for a buy. Now people, most of the people, what they do is, at an uptrend, if you get a hammer, they think it is going to be a trend continuation, since hammer is a bullish reversal. See, first of all, we have to understand it is a bullish, sorry, it is for a bearish reversal. So the hammer, what it does is, it tends to change the direction of the trend from a downtrend to a uptrend. So if it is going to be formed at an uptrend, it is not valid. We don't validate a hammer at the top of a trend. We just validate a hammer if it is only formed at the bottom of a downtrend. And same scenario goes and applies for hanging man. So always the hanging man has to be formed at the top of a uptrend. If it is formed at the bottom of a downtrend, it is invalid. So these are the important points we have to remember when you're going to trade using hammer and a hanging man. Alright, so we'll get to the next part. So the next subject what we are going to see is inverted hammer and a shooting star. Now let's see what is an inverted hammer and a shooting star. So from this picture of it, you can see that inverted hammer is just the opposite direction of a hammer. So we saw hammer was in such a manner where the body was at the top, and inverted hammer is just the opposite of it, where the body should be at the bottom of the closing. So for an inverted hammer, the body should be at the bottom, whereas a hammer's body will be at the top. Whereas the shooting star, same scenario applies for the shooting star too. So the shooting star has to be at the uptrend, where the closing of the body should be at the bottom. So this is just the opposite to hanging man. So the hanging man was, the body should be at the top. If you just put it upside down, it becomes shooting star. So even in this scenario, you have to be very careful with the candle's color. So if consider this was in a in this scenario we have blacks and whites. So if this was black, then this trade would be invalid. So we don't get a shooting star at the bottom of a downtrend. If the shooting star is formed at the bottom of a downtrend, we don't validate it, because it doesn't represent a trend continuation. So first thing to know in mind is, whether it be a hammer or an inverted hammer, it should always be bullish. So hammer, the word hammer, inverted or hammer, it is always bullish. Alright, so I'll show you some live examples for this too. So from the downtrend, we have a inverted hammer. As you can see, there was a long upper shadow and the body was at the bottom, and you can see the color was green. So it is a trend reversal. Now the buyers are going to control the market, where the sellers are losing their power and the buyers are now controlling the market. As you can see, the market, it just shooted up after giving a successful inverted hammer. And then we have some shooting stars. So in this scenario, we can see there was a resistance line at this point, and there we have a spinning top, and then we have a shooting star here, and then we have a shooting star here. So these two acted as a shooting star, but the important part is we have a resistance line here. So rule number 2 applies here. When there is a resistance, you need not wait for the next candle confirmation. So you need not wait for this candle. You could have gone for a sell over here. So that is the rules which we have set for trading a inverted hammer and a shooting star. So as you can see, the rules are the same as hammer and a hanging man. Only thing is vice versa. So the rules are same. Only thing is the candlestick's position has been changed. So hammer was a long lower shadow and the body was at the top, whereas inverted hammer we have a long upper shadow where the body is at the bottom. And for a shooting star, we have a long upper shadow and the body should be at the low level, and for a hanging man the body has to be at the top and there should be a long lower shadow. This is the criteria for a hammer hanging man, and an inverted hammer and a shooting star. So some other examples are, so other example, live example. So the current market is trading at no, it's a euro dollar. So we have a resistance line at 1.17293. So euro USD, and we had a shooting star at near the resistance level. So as you can see, after the resistance, see the market moved all the way down. But I just wanted to show you there was a invalid hanging man. See, at the bottom of a downtrend, if you get a hanging man at the bottom of a downtrend, it is invalid because hanging man has to come at the top of a trend. Now let's say the market, you get a hanging man at the top of a trend, it represents from resistance it's going to come down. If the hanging man is formed at the bottom of a downtrend, it doesn't represent it's going to give you a trend continuation. So this is your live example. See, we have a invalid hanging man because it came at the bottom of a downtrend. So we don't validate it. This was invalid, whereas this shooting star was valid. And even in this scenario, the market went up, and then we had a hammer over here. So as you can see, there was a hammer. So now we don't validate this hammer, thinking, now what most of the people think is, okay, we got a hammer, so they think the market will break up and it will shoot up. So it can be a trend continuation. No, it is invalid because the hammer has to be formed at the bottom of a downtrend. So this hammer could have been formed here. So then we could have validated. But since it has formed at the top of an uptrend, the hammer is invalid. So it doesn't represent a trend continuation. So it is just invalid. So some other example. So the next example is we have a shooting star at the top of a uptrend. So as you can see, so in a full uptrend, we had a shooting star. There was no resistance here. So as you can notice, there was no resistance. So we have to wait for the next candle, and the next candle we could have gone for a sell. So we could have gone for a sell after the second candle has been confirmed. So always try to follow the rules of these candlesticks pattern, because rules are made through experiences. So after so much of research, and we have been there for 9 to 10 years now, and I have searched and analyzed why certain candlesticks works and it doesn't work. So the important part is we have to apply these rules, and we can trade the shooting stars and hammers. So always try to have your rules which I gave you, and once you set the rules and you see the same criteria where you have a resistance and you have a shooting star, or you have a resistance, you have a hanging man, then you can definitely go for a sell, and with a proper stop loss. So always use proper stop loss at supply and demand zones. And at the bottom, if you're going to buy, wait for a support. If there is a support, you can just go for a buy. If the hammer or a inverted hammer is formed at the bottom of a downtrend. So this is how you trade hammer, inverted hammer, shooting star, and a hanging man. So I hope this will really help you when you're going to trade the Japanese candlesticks, and when you're going to use these types of candles in your trading methods. So have these rules, set of rules, and try to apply these rules and trade. So my students, plenty of my students are following this, and they are making consistent profits, not only using candlesticks, but they are applying different types of technical analysis in order to make consistent profits in the markets. So I'm trying to give certain things to the public through YouTube, so that it could help many people, and they can also make this financial market as a profession. So I hope this helps you guys. In today's topic, we saw about 4 different types of candlesticks, which is hammer, inverted hammer, and a shooting star, and a hanging man. So apply these rules and start trading in the markets, and hope to see you soon for the next video. I'll just try to upload the next video as soon as possible. So stay tuned. Thank you very much for your time. Take care.